obviously, I talked to a lot of you guys at a lot of these screenings, and everyone's been asking me, when are you going to have the fighter? Everyone wants to talk about these performances, this amazing cast, the direction, the script. I know what fans you guys are, and I'm very excited to have with us here tonight the visionary director who brought this film to life. He's one of those rare directors who, in my opinion, is batting 1,000, having made movies like Spanking the Monkey, Flirting with Disaster, I Heart Huckabees, and Three Kings. Never made an uninteresting film, never made a bad film in my opinion. He is, for The Fighter, a DGA nominee, a Golden Globe nominee, and an Academy Award nominee for Best Director. Please welcome David O. Russell. That was some really long applause. We only have an hour, but I appreciate that, as I'm sure our guest does.
Yes, I do.
Thank you so much for being here tonight. Congratulations on a beautiful movie. Did you have any idea when you were shooting this film a year and a half ago in Lowell, Massachusetts, that it was going to have such an impact on so many people?
You never quite know, but I did know we had something very special. And sometimes when you make a movie, you're not sure exactly how it's going to come out. You're hoping. Especially my last movie, Huckabees, which was very experimental. You really didn't know because we were really trying to figure it out ourselves, which we obviously didn't perfectly do. And this film, no, we knew what it was. We knew that we had these amazing characters. It's good when you just are so loving it in the moment. We loved the sisters, we loved the mother, we loved Dickie, we loved Mickey, we loved Charlene. They all just fascinated me and cracked me up and moved me. So that I knew we had that. And I just knew it was really real, and I knew that our attitude was right. Our attitude was just really. Everybody was grateful to be there. Everybody was keeping it real and simple, and we did not have a lot of time or money, so we were very focused, and we were among the people of Lowell, so we got to be part of their community, and we got to be part of the family, and Dickie and Mickey were with us. You saw them at the end of the film there, and we were with them all the time. They lived at Mark Wahlberg's house in Los Angeles, where we trained for a month prior to going to Lowell, and then when we went to Lowell, we were among Uncle Jerry, Cousin Ray, Uncle Jack, Casey, the daughter, who's grown up now, Sean Eklund, who's a fighter, who's training with the family, who's a contender. I mean, all the family. And it's really a wonderful thing to be welcomed into a community like that and be part of it. I hated to leave, and I still go back there quite a bit.
I just want to mention, because this film looks so accomplished, and when I tell people the budget and the shooting schedule, they think I'm a huge liar. So could you, for once and for all, tell everyone at home what your budget and shooting schedule was?
Well, we had 11 below the line, which is $11 million. So that's what we had to make the movie. The other stuff, I'm not sure where that all goes, but it goes to some financing process, some studio thing that we don't get to use it. And then when we had 33 days, so we used three. Yeah, I know. And so, we had 3 days to do the fights, and then 30. And Mark wisely suggested, let's do the fights first, so I don't have to keep training the whole time, and I can, right? Because he had been training for 4 years,
Yeah.
So he said that way I can just focus on the scenes and the acting, and not have to also be worried about fighting. So.
You can tell these people know this industry. You could feel their pain when you said 33 days.
But I kind of liked it in a weird way. I would like to make all my movies like that, because I just feel like it made us be very disciplined. We had to, other great filmmakers have said that quite often you shoot too much and you shoot things you don't need and you don't shoot what you do need. And part of that is part of the process, but part of that is also because you haven't taken the rigor or the discipline to figure it out beforehand. You're like, well, we'll figure that out later. This made us figure it out. Like, make those hard choices now. You got to get that script from 133 pages, a terrific script by Scott Silver, who so generously collaborated with me to change it from what it had been in previous incarnations to what I thought it should be. with the romance and the sisters and the mother being more prominent, and the humor that I naturally see in these people that remind me of my family. As much as they bend your heart, they can also crack you up. So we had to get it down to 108 pages. And so that meant a whole section of Dickie in the 70s had to go. That meant we had to economically, as filmmakers, it was quite a thing to pull off the opening of the film. It has like 3 beginnings, but you had to make it flow so it was always gripping. You didn't want it to feel like expository. Well, let us tell you who Dickie was, and let us tell you who Alice is, and let us tell you who Mickey is now, and let us tell you what he did with Sugar Ray Leonard. It was like you had to do it in a way that just flowed. And we finally found that with Pam Martin, our editor, who is also nominated. And that was one of the things I was most proud of, how we were able to get you into the movie and enchant you. And those discoveries of those interviews were the way that, how do you arrest you right away? We shot those interviews. They were not scripted. We did not have schedule or budget to shoot those interviews with the brothers on the couch. We also interviewed ladies on the street, like those 2 ladies in the documentary who say, Dickie set this town back 30 years. I don't know what he was thinking. That was the mayor, the former mayor of Lowell, and the town manager of Lowell. And they meant it when they said that. And we did a lot of interviews with those ladies, and we did a lot of interviews with the sisters as in character, and it was heartbreaking to take that out of the film. We kept cutting to them as a Greek chorus, which I loved. And I know, it'll be on the DVD. You had to keep it moving. But those things became the gift that were the bookends of the film. Mm-hmm. Because the gift was because as actors, and we were all so comfortable, the actors were so comfortable in their roles and in our process that you could say at 3 o'clock in the morning, sit on this couch and I'm going to throw questions at you. And everybody was real game to do that. And then Christian cries and you hit pay dirt and Mark reacts completely in character. It's so real. Mm-hmm. He reacts like a humbled, grateful younger brother, and you can see it on Mark's face, and you can feel it. We all started crying. I'm gonna start crying now. When Christian does that, it always messes me up. When Christian, he just did that because he felt it. He so identified with Dickie. He so felt Dickie's pride. Dickie's a much more gifted fighter than Mickey, and as Mickey will admit, he's a very gifted individual. He squandered it, which is why he takes that cake and gives it it says the pride of Lowell, and gives it to that crack house, because that's such a humbling, beautiful thing, because it's like he's saying, this is what I did with my talent, and I'm going to leave it with you, because I understand and accept now that that's what I did, and I own that, and I made that mistake, and I can live with that, and now I can be humble and be in my brother's corner, and I won't fight that anymore, because all of his shenanigans are all the subtitle. If you had a subtitle, they would all say, it's still mine. You can't have it. It's all about me. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? It's not about you. Even if I'm in jail, even if I'm committing crimes, it's about me. And when he finally says, okay, it's about you, that made it, we all felt it in the room that night when he got up off that couch.
Well, we're going to come back to the fighter and specifically the casting of the film, but I actually want to go back to the beginning of your career, if you don't mind.
I did not realize this was this is your life.
Do you recognize this voice? We've got your high school principal.
Aunt Rose is here.
I find it interesting because you're not one of those people who was making movies as a kid. You didn't set out to be a filmmaker. You wanted to be a revolutionary, didn't you?
I was always what my friend from my childhood called an impresario. I was always Tom Sawyer. You know what I mean? The one who here's the plan. You know what I mean? Whether it was touch football or hide and seek or planning certain pranks, or things that you would do as a kid. That I did that, and I started a newspaper in high school. When I didn't get given the editorship of my high school newspaper, I said, "Well, we're going to start our own paper." And then,
what was yours called?
Ours was. We went back to a paper had been shut down during the Vietnam War era because it got too irreverent, and we resurrected that paper. Because another one had taken its place, and that was probably where I started my life as a filmmaker. Because you have you got to get people to sign on. This way, follow me, and you don't want to turn around and there's nobody behind you. So I had to inspire all those 9th and 10th and 11th graders to come on board, our team, which is just like making a movie,
So how did you come to filmmaking? I know you were a film fan. You loved movies.
My mom had a big impression on me. My mom was one of those dreamers, those people who, like so many people, who just spent her life sneaking out of school and going to the movies, and she grew up in Brooklyn, and she would just cut school and go to the movies. And then my dad, because they met at Simon & Schuster when they were 18 at this publishing company where she was a secretary and he was a salesman. They were both working class kids who started a publishing company. They started working there, and so we had all these books in the house that had all these these big picture books of great films that my mom would show me, with all those great movies. Betty Davis, who was born in Lowell. Yeah.
But not the pride of Lowell.
She was the pride of Lowell for a long time, probably. And then Jack Kerouac became the pride of Lowell. Ed McMahon was from Lowell.
Ed McMahon, really?
Yeah. And then Dick Eklund, and then Mickey, and now this film. So that's, yeah.
I was going to say, and now you, but yes.
So, anyway, so she showed me all those, and she took me to movies all the time, too. And it was really the cinema, and my girlfriend in high school had a pass because her grandmother had owned a United Artists Theater. And and so you could go to a United Artists Theater. United Artists was the greatest. It was started by Chaplin and Pickford, and they had all these theaters, and they made all the Woody Allen movies, and they made all these great movies, and you could go to any theater with as many people as you wanted for free, and when you're broke and you're 15, that's pretty good. So we would go and watch Chinatown like 10 times. We would go and watch, The Godfather Part 2. We'd go and watch Shampoo. We'd go and watch all those amazing movies from 1975, 76, 77. Those were great years.
Love that you mentioned Shampoo, because the other night Warren Beatty could not stop talking about The Fighter and how much he loved it at the Annette Bening retrospective. What's it like to have people you grew up watching? I mean, I don't know if I want to say heroes, but someone like Warren Beatty tell you they're a fan of yours. Warren
is completely a hero of mine, and he was the first big movie star that I got to meet, which was terribly exciting to me. I was always in love with him from watching him in movies, and I fell in love with him more when I met him, and I still love him. And
we're in a submarine, I think. You heard that, right? It wasn't just me. Okay,
maybe that was somebody's phone. Anyway, Warren was my hero also because you mentioned that a revolutionary. I had two things that really influenced me. One was books, because my dad worked at Simon & Schuster, and the other was politics and doing do-good work, like do good work for the underdogs, whether it's fixing housing or, cleaning up a bad part of town. My mom was all into that. Like, she was like this very strong Italian-American woman who was all into that. So those are the two things that I was into. I was into that. And when I was in college, I really loved the film Reds, and I really loved, and I went to Nicaragua where they just had a revolution, and I had a whole adventure down there, and I wrote about it. And someday I might make a movie about it. But Warren was always an inspiration to me as a filmmaker and as a person. And I remember in Flirting with Disaster, there's a bit where Ben Stiller goes into the bathroom and he's like mumbling to himself as he's taking his pants off and putting them back on because he's lying to his wife. He hasn't told his wife that Téa Leoni's in the apartment. And he's doing it anyway. And I said, and we called it the Warren Beatty thing, because Warren Beatty has this thing where he can move and kind of mutter to himself in this way. I don't know what I'm doing. It's crazy. I should just say something. I'll just say something. So there's a. If you ask me how I direct actors, there's one way. Say, do it kind of the way Warren Beatty would do it, and that's legitimate. And that's a legitimate direction. And I'll tell you why. First of all, I'll say any legitimate direction is by any means necessary if it gets you there and gets us there. And the other is that I read how Bob Dylan, and I've said this before, wrote his songs, and John Lennon wrote their songs. They would have other people's songs in their heads. And that was very liberating to me as an artist, because you think, I'm not allowed to do that. And Bob Dylan says, no, I have somebody else's song in my head all day. Or John Lennon would say, that was my Roy Orbison song. And you go, really? That song doesn't remind me at all of Roy Orbison. But to him, that's what it was. He had Roy Orbison in his head. He wrote a song. Or he had Bob Dylan in his head, and he wrote Norwegian Wood. That doesn't really sound like Bob Dylan to me. I mean, I guess a little bit, but so that just, you can do that as a performer. You can say, well, this is like this performance or this movie. Sometimes I've had other movies in my head. So when I made Spanking the Monkey, I had The Graduate in my head, and that movie doesn't really feel anything like The Graduate, except it has a very anguished young man at the center of it who has sex with an older woman.
Who happens to be...
But the mother. But this is the other. This is his mom, yeah.
I like how you left that
But are we
off.
supposed to cover the whole thing, really? The whole?
No, but I am curious because Spanky the Monkey was your debut feature, and I believe you wrote it while you were on jury duty.
Yes.
So,
Jury
so
duty.
get on jury duty.
Got me out of my day job for a couple weeks. Right? I got double paid. I got paid by the state of New York, and I got paid by my office job. And
What was the case?
I got recused. Every case, I never got picked for a jury
Oh.
because every jury, like they interview you, and every answer I gave, they're like, no, not this guy. I don't want him on our jury. So that was fine with me because then you get to sit in this big room. The best excuse for creating, and this goes for actors as well as writers, to me, is to trick yourself that you're not under enormous pressure to perform at that moment. So for me, at that time of jury duty, I was writing this thing that was supposed to be my first feature, and because it was so much pressure to do that after making these 2 short films, it just kind of went on, and it wasn't coming from my gut. And then on jury duty, I had an excuse to sit in public among people, which is better than being alone in your studio apartment. It's like I'm around people. That feels nice. I've got the New York Post over there. I've got, you can sit around. It's kind of a relaxing environment. And I just started to have this pornographic fantasy based on this summer my mom had a rough summer where she was drinking a lot, and she smashed up a couple of cars, and my dad was away, and I was kind of there trying to help her out. And I turned it into this really sick story, and I was like, that is a sick story. And I said, but I felt like I could write it right then. Cause you know what I mean? So I said, but you can't write that, that's too sick. And I said, no, I'm just gonna write it for me, just for me. And I wrote it, and it came out blip, just like that.
Wow.
And I was like, that's good. And it got me out of my day job. That got me an agent, that script, and got me started, because it came from the gut.
Because there's a lot of sick people out there who wanted to see this
Well,
movie.
it connects. I don't think it's the sick thing, but I think that it was real. You know what I'm saying? And whatever else I
Absolutely.
was writing was reaching around for the real. You know what I'm saying? And somehow I was not doing it. Sometimes you chase the wrong horse. You're like chasing something that you're like, well, you can try to do that story, but that may not ever become real or very powerful. Why don't you? That's my main advice to any young filmmaker, and just do something that is real and feels powerful.
Flirting with Disaster, although a very different movie, also didn't that sort of come from real life?
Yes, my sister, 2 things were happening in my life at that time. Well, Spanking the Monkey, we hoped it got into Sundance. It did get into Sundance. My ex-wife, Janet, was a huge hero in helping us get that made. She helped me get short ends from New Line Cinema, where she worked. Those are the short ends of film that you get when on the big movies, they have the little leftover rolls of film. So when you're making Spanking the Monkey, you don't know how long each roll is, and you kind of guess. You hope it doesn't roll out during this scene. So sometimes the actor's doing their best work, and you're like, damn it rolled out.
Would you tell them that you didn't capture what they just
Well,
done?
I was a rookie, so I didn't know how to hide things. I just was like, oops. So that won the Audience Award at Sundance, which was a godsend, and because I wanted everybody to get their money back, and they did. And then Miramax Harvey Weinstein offered us, to do Flirting with Disaster, which I'd written. My ex-wife was very wise, and as all women are wiser than I am, I've discovered. That she said, you better write your next script fast, because your window may not always be here. You better strike while the iron's hot. And that turned out to be true, because there were other people in that class of Sundance. It was Kevin Smith, it was me, and it was Rose Troach, who made a great lesbian comedy. And she's a terrific filmmaker. And she, told me years later that she didn't seize the moment, and she kind of missed it a little bit, And so my wife said, "We have a little baby, and you better get your moment,"
Translation, go make money.
Or you're going back to the job at the desk, because I was still thinking I may have to go back to that job. So I'd had a little baby, which had disrupted my life and my sex life at home, and which so that was like what inspired that. And that was one half of the story, and sort of like the identity of naming the baby, and it created this whole thing. And my sister, who is adopted, was at the same time finding her biological parents at that time, and she had had a child of her own, and she started to find her biological parents, and so she was having this adventure that I would get updates on every couple of days, and I was like, this is insane, because every chapter was like, some other crazy thing where it was the wrong people and it turned out to be wrong, and then as she started to get closer to the real people, that the guy was in organized, I think he was in organized crime, so he he's a good guy though. I mean, he's a good guy. I mean, she liked him when she met him and she was happy, but he was like a good fella kind of. So when she closed in on that, there were people protecting him who were trying to scare her away. So she had all these crazy experiences that I just put together in a milkshake in my head when I remember I was going down to see my parents for Thanksgiving, and I wove those together into the adventure that became Flirting with Disaster.
Your film after that, Three Kings, we have a question from the audience about this actually, from Ellen.
And that's how, by the way, sorry to interrupt you. That's how I met Warren Beatty, because he saw that film and he loved that film and he called me up and he asked to come to meet me, and that was a very exciting thing for me. Yeah, because he loved that picture, and I also got to meet Woody Allen because of that picture, because he also loved that picture. So that picture opened a lot of doors for me.
And I know you got a letter from John Lithgow.
Yes.
Yes, he mentioned the other day.
Yes, he wrote. I still remember. I still have that letter.
This question from Ellen from the audience: with everything that's happened in Iraq since Three Kings came out back in 1999, do you find the film dated or eerily prescient? And also, where did you get the idea for the washed-out look, and how did Warner Brothers let you get away with that?
Okay, let's work backwards. So with the look, this was the pre-digital era. So we experimented with all these film processes, such as bleach bypass for Three Kings. That's one of the things that turned me on about that story, was that I'd never seen a war movie that looked like that. Although then that summer Steven Spielberg released Saving Private Ryan, and he used some of that, and I was like, damn it. But I was like, okay, we had one other trick up our sleeve, which there also hadn't been a war movie in 10 years. And I was like, yay, I'm going to be the first war movie in 10 years. And then Saving Private Ryan came out. I'm the first war movie that isn't a World War II movie in 10 years.
But they didn't have an exploding cow.
They did have a lot of crazy things. And they didn't have reversal, which we had. We also did Ektachrome Reversal, which is you take regular picture stock, not film stock, not movie picture stock, but when people used to use cameras, that kind of film stock. And you use that, and then you do something, I'm not that technical, you do something reversal to the negative or something. So that was the part of the movie that looked really saturated and crazy, which is something you could do very easily digitally now, but at the time it was rather radical, and it really freaked Warner Brothers out, and they were, but Lorenzo di Bonaventura was our hero, the producer of the Transformers movies, and who's a great guy and a good friend. He was championing Matrix and our picture. He put his neck on the line for both of those pictures.
Wow.
And he was a very ballsy studio executive, and he wanted to fight for us. That was when the independent film movement was blowing up out of Sundance, and the studio said, please come here, we really want you. And I said, I don't know, how are you going to let me do my thing? He said, well, we made JFK with Oliver Stone, so they were like trying to prove their cred to me, which that's what the era was at that time. And the first week of rushes were so weird that you couldn't see like people's eyes were like black sockets, because it was this weird contrast, and that was a little scary. And we sent it to a different lab. We switched labs, and they thankfully were able to reprocess it so it looked right, and we stayed with that lab. I think the film was a little prescient, when I was editing it. I met the future candidate, George W. Bush, at a party at the chairman of Warner Brothers' house, and he wasn't even a candidate yet, and I said, I'm editing a film that's going to question your father's legacy in Iraq, and he immediately shook my hand. He said, I'm going to go back there, and I said, maybe I'll have to go back and change that. And which, weirdly, because of the Iraqi friends I'd made in the movie, and that was part of the movie, was like, we didn't really do right by there. We needed to help them set up a democracy. Well, it turned out to be not such a great idea. I mean, it turned out to be a harder idea that his father was right in some ways, I came to think. I supported the war for the first few years, and then I was like, I think it's turning out to be too hard. What else do you want to know about that movie?
Actually, I was going to move on.
That was somebody else asked a question from the internet, didn't they? That's what that was. I don't know if I answered all her questions.
Yes, I think so.
Okay.
Another question wants to know about I Heart Huckabees. We actually have a lot of Huckabees fans. They want to know if there was much improv on the set, and apparently somebody spoke to Naomi Watts who said this was like her most fun experience, and is curious about how you worked with the actors to keep the atmosphere loose.
Oh boy, as Naomi Watts once said on that movie, every day was like a party on that movie. I mean, we had a lot of fun on that movie. And the irony is I became famous for that one horrible day with Lily, whom I adore, and and we adore each other, that's why that stuff should stay private when somebody has a bad day, and she was having a bad day. She started out having a bad day, and then I, in turn, had a bad day back at her, and which was so embarrassing, and then it makes you, it's like branding you in the ass. You're like, I'll never do that again. We had a great time on that movie. I mean, I don't know why. I don't know. I think I was kind of going through a transformation that went on for a few years personally, that I was just kind of trying to loosen up a little bit. I think I had been a little too serious and intense, and I just was trying to relax a little bit. And so we had a lot of fun on that movie, and the movie itself was so whimsical. I think if I'd been more intense, though, the movie would have benefited from it, because I think I became too whimsical, and I think that intensity and rawness would have made the movie more emotional. But there was some improvisation on the set, for sure. I mean, people are always, the way we rehearse things is you get into a rhythm, and people pick up the rhythm. That was where Dustin Hoffman taught me that many things were okay ways to direct that I thought were not okay ways to direct. Like I believe in the musicality, which I've since heard Quentin Tarantino talk about. The musicality of the language Dustin said, the music of a voice is the character. So you should never think that that's not a legitimate direction. And that came true with Amy Adams and Melissa Leo in The Fighter, because one of the most important directions to them was, you guys have to speak like men, because they're very powerful. Amy in particular, she speaks from down here, and Amy had never really done that in all of her more sunshiny roles. She was a very musical alto type person. So to go down to baritone had an emotional effect that rippled through her whole person. Mm-hmm. It changed her life even. Like, it brought out parts of her personality that she had never fully embraced, which were sort of the not so people pleasing, the more badass, I'm not going to break my gaze with you, and I meant what I said gaze, which she came right out of her, and she would hold the room in that movie like a badass, just like that. Like when she comes out onto the porch and Alice and the gang have come to confront her, she would come out and she goes, hi. It's like that. She's like, I'm not going to be intimidated by you. She just comes out and says, hi, what's up? Like that. She's like, and that's just, that all started with lowering the voice, and then with meeting Charlene and on from there.
Huckabees was your last film released back in 2004, and you flirted with several projects since then, and I think this audience can really relate to not being able to do what you want to do during periods of time. I'm just curious, was that a difficult time for you, and what sort of got you through those years?
Frustrating, isn't it? I don't know. I went through a divorce, and my son changed schools. He had to go to a school back east that was really good for him. That was a hard thing to help find and make happen. And I did a lot of writing. I was a little lost. You know what I'm saying? I'm just going to say, I got a little lost. I think you have to allow yourself to make mistakes and be lost sometimes, so you can get to the next place. And I think that's true of actors, and that's what I want actors to feel on sets too. I don't want people to be afraid to make mistakes. I want people to feel the opposite of that. I want them to feel like, I don't want you to know when the camera's on or off. I want you to feel like, just relax. Just don't be wed to one thing, like that's how you have to do it microscopically that way every time. Just flow with it every time and feel like you can mess up and change the words and do whatever you want. So I think making mistakes is important. So because it frees you up, and then then whatever is meant to come forward is going to come forward, which, knock on wood, happened with The Fighter. But those were, I don't know, I did a lot of writing. I had to support my family still, so I write for a living. That's my job. I'm supposed to have that now. In an Oscar season, every day I feel a little like I'm playing hooky, because I'm not, every day there's all these events like this, and I didn't anticipate that, and I'm not getting my writing done completely. Chuck Roven and Amy Pascal. That is coming, though. That homework is coming. I'm going to hand in that homework. The dog did not eat it, and it's good. It's going to be good. So, I did a lot of writing. like that, and some things, I learned a lot. I learned a lot. I became a better writer. I became a better director, I think, because I went through whatever, I cut away all the stuff that was distracting, or, I learned to see more clearly and more directly and more confidently, I would say, for sure. And to just go for the jugular for a story and for a character and for a moment, which I think shows up in The Fighter. I mean, like every scene, we want it to be very visceral emotionally and never really get boring or never get too predictable, And I think really the one predictable thing in the whole movie to me is that he wins in the end, and I always grappled with that, I knew we were going to have sort of that rocky ending, but I did feel that because the movie was so emotional and so they'd gone through such tribulations that the audience and the characters had earned it, because that's really what they went through in life, and that was a very big deal to them. And I forgot what question I'm answering.
That's okay. I'm moving on to another one. This is your third collaboration with Mark Wahlberg after Three Kings and I Heart Huckabees. And I know that this was his passion project for many years. Can you tell us how it came to you, how you came to be involved? Because it was passed around.
Passed around like some cheap party boy. Well, it was Mark's passion project. Mark is from 9 Children. This is a movie about 9 children. He's from a very similar area. Mark's father was when we met their father, the first thing he said to us was, "I knew your father, Mark. I knew him in prison, and he's a good guy, your father." And Mark's father was a very great man. He's dead now, but he was a really good guy. And so was George Ward. They're guys who made mistakes. There it is again. Trying to support their families. They had roofing businesses. They made some mistakes. And Mark, it was a piece of Mark's heart. And I got to know Mark from Three Kings. He came in off of Boogie Nights, was 26 years old, a kind of mumbling young guy. He claims he was in character for a James Gray movie he was doing then. I think he still was a mumbler anyway.
Yeah, did that movie come out?
Yeah.
Which one was it?
The James Gray movie? It was the one with, the first one with Joaquin.
Oh, okay.
The Yards with Faye Dunaway. So he, then he kind of, we did Three Kings together, then we did Huckabees together. We got to be very close friends, and we would talk all the time. And he would talk to me about this project, and he had it with different directors, and I was doing different things. And then I just started to tell him my ideas about it. He would call me very late at night after his family was also asleep, and he was watching TV late at night in his bathroom. And he would call me, and he has like a little special bathroom he hangs out in. And so he would call me from there, and we would talk, And so I started to tell him my ideas, and he started saying, "Why don't you direct this movie?" And I said, "Well, I hope you can, I hope you can make that happen." My stock was a little low at the time. The movie had become a challenged movie. It had been a movie at one time that was going to be like a $60 million budget with Brad Pitt, and those guys had come and gone, and Matt Damon came and went. And I saw Matt Damon recently, and I had the privilege of meeting him, and he said to me very graciously that our movie shows that the right people play the right roles at the right time. Mm-hmm. And that was his way of graciously saying that he thought Christian played Dickie in a way that perhaps he might not have. And
since you mentioned Christian, just a phenomenal performance. There aren't enough adjectives in the world to describe how people feel about this performance. But on paper, he might not be the first person you would think of for this role. Former boxer, drug addict. How did the part come to him?
Mark saw him at Mark's daughter's school across the parking lot. And Mark and Mark was a little desperate at this point. He's like, "What about that guy?" And that should tell you how your job, you have to so let go and let God in your job, because you so don't control it, unless you make your own short films. I mean, it's hard enough being a director, but being an actor, you really don't control it. I mean, so what?
Oh, I just want to clarify that Christian wasn't just hanging out at
No, you always
Mark's
make
school.
this joke.
No, because you need
Christian
to
also had a daughter there.
Okay, Mark and Christian's
did you guys
daughter
not
go to
understand
school
that?
together.
You understood.
You said he was sitting in a car across from Mark's daughter's school.
You added the car.
Did I, people?
Yes,
He said that, didn't he?
Rewind the tape. I did not say car. I said he looked across the parking lot and saw a guy. So you had a whole thing you were
Okay,
doing. You were doing a whole
little
bit,
weird.
like your theater bits. No, they
My
both
theater
they,
bits.
they both have daughters at this school, and he saw Christian there, and he said, "What about him?" And he really liked his work. He saw that Christian committed, really had no ego about disappearing into a role, and he said, "I bet he would be pretty good, and be pretty raw, as Dickie." And then Christian and I met, and Mark was being the godfather to this whole thing. Mark just has so much faith that everything we do in our business is such a process. That's Mark's mantra. He's like, it's a process, because every other day you think this isn't going to happen. This is like not, or it's not going to happen for me. It doesn't look. You just feel that way, and he's like, it's a process, and you just have to hang in there, and eventually, it all does come together, and that's how we kept saying. And he said, "Why don't you meet Christian?" The studio had not even really approved me yet, and he said, "Why don't you just meet Christian?" And he was slowly working his thing. He was doing his thing as a producer. And me and Christian sat down at Shutters over there in Santa Monica, and Mark left us there like a father leaving two kids for a play date and seeing how it would go. Hope this play date goes well. And he came back, and me and Christian were just talking, like a barn on fire. And we both really agreed that Dickie was a very lovable character. And in the existing script, a pre-existing script, was not as lovable as he could be. And that you didn't need to just portray him as a dark dude. That was one dimension of him. And he's an unbelievably likable person in real life. Mm-hmm. As you could see in that clip at the end. He's just such a charming guy. And so it was really people talk a lot about how Amy Adams played against type, which is quite true, and she did it brilliantly. So did Christian. Mm-hmm. Because he always plays rather intense, serious people, and this was the first time he'd played someone who was kind of goofy and big and warm and sloppy and gangly and dancing and funky, and he. It was fantastic. I think he so enjoyed being in that character all the time that he never came out of character, and I still think he has it in him, And he said, and when he speaks at some of these awards things, I'm like, I still hear a little Dickie in there, and he said, I hope he made a joke. He said, I hope they like Batman as Dickie, because he really connected with that character. I think, just like it was liberating for Amy to play that tough part of herself, I think it was very liberating for Christian to play the looser, funkier part of himself and the warmer part of himself. I guess that's a gift we all get from making movies, right? And doing our work. We get to do something that can change us or bring out some cool part of ourselves, right?
I know Christian doesn't like to dwell on his on-screen weight loss, but can you talk a little bit about the physical transformation, not just the weight loss, the bald spot, I don't know if it was makeup, the gauntness of the face, how he got into the character physically?
Yeah, he always says, I'll answer for him. He's like, please don't ask me about losing weight. It's not hard to lose weight. He goes, just move around a lot. You don't eat, but it's the performance that he's proud of. We both loved the bald spot and embraced it immediately. We were like, yes, must do the bald spot, must do the receding hairlines. And he goes off and does his thing. He's very much has his own laboratory, and when he comes back from his laboratory, and we played with the teeth quite a bit, because Dickie has two kinds of teeth. He has his post-prison teeth and he has his pre-prison teeth, and he doesn't have a lot of teeth. And he plays around with them a lot, and he pops them out of his mouth. He pops his dentures out a lot, and he'll go, ha, ha, and he'll put them on your shoulder. You'll be sitting there, and you realize his teeth are on your shoulder. So we were going to do all that in the movie, and there was like a whole bunch of discussion of that, and the producers were kind of like, that sounds creepy to me, and we were like, no, it'll be really funny. And I think it would have been funny, because it would have been if we had done it. But we just we didn't have time, and we kind of were like, let's not do the teeth popping out thing. We even with Mark tried. We're going to do teeth in Mark's to make Mark's teeth like Mickey. He just reminded me of that the other day, and we were laughing at how funny he looked in those teeth. But Christian, it's very hard to talk with those teeth. Mm-hmm. When he put those teeth in, I was like, oh, this is a whole challenge. So we had to get the teeth right, and he really got it right. He helped adjust the teeth. Christian did. And he helped learn how to speak with the teeth so that it was seamless, which was no small feat. I mean, it easily could have been like, this isn't going to work, because we even had a moment where we said, maybe we can't do the teeth because it's just making it too hard for you to talk. and we were all disappointed about that. And we were just going to paint them yellow, and do all that stuff. But then we had like smaller prosthetics, and we ended up going with the bigger ones, and he mastered it.
And I know that Christian has played real life people before in movies like Rescue Dawn, but he was never able to meet them. And he really enjoyed getting to meet Dickie. And from what I understand, he was such a dead-on impersonation of him that when they would be talking to each other, some people couldn't understand what they were saying.
I mean, when he really talked like Dickie, which he did the first couple of weeks, you really couldn't understand what he was saying. And that was like a sort of a director-actor debate, because I said, you got to articulate that, and he said, but then I'm not being the character. I said, oh, you are still being the character. I mean, but I got to understand what you're saying, or I'm not going to care about your character. And eventually I said, I get it, it'll become really boring if we can't really understand what he's saying. So he found just the right balance of that. And when people very often mistook him for Dickie and mistook Melissa Leo for Alice in town, they would come up and start talking, like they would shout to them from the back or come up to them, and it was the actors and not the real people.
Speaking of Christian and Melissa, there's a specific scene I want to talk about in the film that everyone cites when they talk about this movie, where they sing together. It's a beautiful moment in the car. Do you remember this scene? Okay. For a second, I was like, this was the right movie, right? Can you tell me, was that in the script? Did that sort of develop naturally? And how did you help get the actors to that very unique, vulnerable place to give those performances?
Well, that's how, you have to sort of, it's a slow process of trust that starts with the first day you meet them and you connect, over coffee, or like with Christian, over drinks. And you have to really connect and trust with each other, and I've learned that more than anything as a director, and especially in the last few years, you really have to have that relationship. And then the whole ensemble had a flow that sort of took over by that point. So everybody was in the flow in a tone that was really set by Mark, of like, respect these people, respect their story, respect their town, don't bring your ego here, really respect this and give everything you have to it. And that's what he was doing every day. Show up on time, stay late, know your lines, and do the best you can. And that was sort of the environment we were in. And once everyone got into the flow, which happened, like I say, it's like a musicality. It's like a song, that once we got the song of this community and of these people, which is one of the things I love about the film. It's what I love about Goodfellas. It's what I love about some Quentin's movies, is that there is it has a rhythm, and it's like watching them speak and watching them be is like listening to music in some way, and I could listen, and I love it. By that time, we had that going on, and I had written this scene, as I always knew with Scott Silver. I knew that I wanted to have a scene where they were like a romantic couple, Dickie and Alice, in real life, and she, after 9 children, still was sexy. We looked at their family photo albums, and that's where we took all those great wardrobe and hair ideas from, because it was just so much fun to look at their family photo albums. And I wanted to do something online where you showed what our fantastic Mark Bridges and Judy Becker had done with the costumes and the sets, respectively, and what the real photo albums looked like. So you can see in those pictures that she looked half the time like she could have been his girlfriend as much as she was his mom. And I knew they had a very special bond that people would talk about, that was bedeviling to Mickey and many people, like, why are they so bonded and why can't I get some of that, So I thought, and I like music, as I've indicated, so I thought if they sang a song together, it would be a really economical way to do it. And it was, you have to keep things in your back pocket even when people don't approve of them. You have to keep what you believe in and never let it go. So you take those ideas and you stop debating at a certain point, because if they're telling you, no, we're not going to do that, and by they I mean the production schedule and the producer saying, I'm not sure that's a great idea, and I think it's a little weird, and we don't have time for it in the schedule, you say, okay, and then in the back of your mind you're going, I'm going to still try to do that, at some point, when we've done our other homework and put the dishes in the dishwasher, and I'm not going to cheat something else to do that. I'm going to do it so I like taking a challenge like that. It's like I like taking bets with the AD department all the time, because it makes you compete harder, it makes you try harder, so we got these 20 minutes of light, at the end of this day, and I said, did you guys learn that song? They said, oh, you mean that weird Bee Gees song? I said, yeah. That they kept saying to me, why this song? And I said, I think it's just a really beautiful song in a weird way that's about the two of you. I started a joke that started the whole world crying, and I didn't know the joke was on me. There's beautiful lyrics in it. And they're both their credit. They had learned the song. There you go, man. That's what I love as a director, when your actors are not just prepared and not just saturated in their characters and not just game, but they've done everything they could do. They've prepared everything they could prepare. They learned that song. They didn't even know if we were going to get to do it. And I said, let's do it. We got it. And they said, and the production was saying, but you don't even have a camera mount to put the camera on the car. And I said, that's okay. We'll put the camera in the back seat, because that was the only place we could put the camera. And that's why it works aesthetically, because you're behind them and you catch the back of her neck. And I'm always impressed in cinema how powerful the back of someone's body or head can be. So many great scenes that you see in movies that you love, you go back and you go, my God, that whole scene's on Jack Nicholson's back. I never pictured that. I always remembered him saying that line was on his face. And then you go back and you watch the scene and you go, no, it's on the back of his head. And I think I got confident enough as a director to trust that. And so there we are in the back seat with the camera, and you can feel Melissa Leo all from the back of her blonde head and her neck, and you catch a little tear in her eye when she turns sideways. And they sang that song, and we got one take. And there was still a fight, even in the editing room, where people were, producers were still doubtful whether that song belonged in the movie. And David Hoberman, our wonderful producer, with Todd Lieberman, to his credit, said to me, I think that scene's inspired, and I want it to stay in the movie. And those guys are great collaborators, Todd and David, and every step of the way they were. David also came up with that great solution with Jack McGee, which is one of the great laughs. It's the biggest laugh in the whole movie, which is when after the sisters charge over to the house to fight. You remember what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
Because I always think, so when the sisters had gone over there like a gang to confront Charlene, and we thought, well, what happened to George? Did he?
George is
on
smart.
the day we were shooting it, we were like, did George stay behind, or would he just stay at the house, and throw Mickey and Charlene under the bus like that? I don't think he would do that. But would he come and get involved in the scene? I don't think he would do that either. So what should he do? And we were kind of turning it over all day, and David Hoberman said, what if he came and he watched what was happening, and then he just kind of left, And I said, that's a brilliant idea. And I wanted Jack specifically to kind of get out of the truck and do that that kind of looking, instead of just doing it through the windshield. And you can feel in audiences that it's funny, and we could feel that it was funny when you're jamming through your coverage. You have so little time, and we're like, oh my God, we didn't get that angle of what point of view? Oh, George's point of view, because that's what's going to start to sell this. You can't sell it without George's point of view. You have to suddenly cut to whose point of view is that? It's the guy in the truck. Is watching through the bushes. This crazy circus on the porch, and that's when you can feel audiences start to laugh when you go to that point of view. You haven't, if you're not even really seeing Jack yet, they're like, oh my God, and it's the biggest explosion of laughter in the picture.
Wait a second. So the Melissa and Christian scene was done in one take?
Yes.
Didn't even do a safety?
No time, no light.
Okay.
The day was like, that was the end of the day. Also, him jumping out of that window that second time. I was like, I want him to go out the window the second time. And they're like, you have no time to do a stunt like that. And I was like, we can do one. We'll get one. Come on. And we got one.
By the way, there is a term for that back of the head acting. It's called backting. Seriously. No. But since I'm glad you like it. Actually, you mentioned the brilliance.
I can think of so many other uses for that word.
You mentioned the scene that gets the biggest laugh. You mentioned the wonderful Jack McGee. We're actually in for a treat because Jack is here tonight and has agreed to come up. If you'll please welcome him, Jack McGee is going to join us. Here, you stay. They're getting one for him. Sorry, we ran out of chairs because we were so oversold for this event. Do we have an extra mic, or you guys can share? We
I
have a
think
mic.
we're okay.
Jack, thank you so much for being here. I
Thank
didn't
you.
even want to announce it at the beginning. I wanted it to be a surprise.
I want to
for
see what he
everyone.
was going to say about me.
Aww. The casting of this movie is sublime. Every role is filled perfectly. Can you tell us about the process of landing the role of George? I believe it was an audition situation, and you're smiling.
Yes, it was an audition situation. But I just want to tell you, first of all, this is, we've done a bunch of these, and to be in a room with actors is just, I'm humbled to be amongst you. I'm serious. This is, the process went, you get a call. Once in a while they actually do call you. 10% my ass. They start calling when you're in the fighter. It was Sheila Jaffe that put the call in, and I guess I made the cut because I had been in front of Sheila before a number of times and booked a few jobs. And I went to Sheila and I was put on tape, and then I got that call the first time ever in my career so far that she said the director would like you to meet him at his house. So I went up to meet with David. And
What's the address?
I don't know. I have no
Apparently
idea.
everything's online anyway, which is so horrible.
Yeah.
That's moving right along.
Yeah, and I went up to meet with David, and we just sat for a few minutes and we talked, and I did whatever he wanted me to do for the scene, and
Tell them what scene it was.
it was the scene where I come running around like that, I guess silverback gorilla, and tear Dickie off the fence and get hit, and sure enough. I did it, and I thought, okay. And he said, no, I'd like you to do it again. Do it this way. Pull the fence, and it was on his fireplace, the fireplace in his house. So,
Were you just screwing around with him?
No, I don't know. I don't know what it was. I'm here.
You were doing the scene.
He was doing the scene, and
Fireplace is the fence.
And I had never met David before, and I thought after I get out of this, I don't know if I'm ever going to meet him again. Who knows? Who knows? Not that I want to. And I thought I come out of there. The truth is, I've been saying at some of these Q&As, I thought I did a good job. I didn't, sometimes when you get to go out the door, you don't know what you did. Sometimes you go out and you like you think I got him, right? Hey, this is mine, and you never hear from them again, And then sometimes you go in there and you're like the Rain Man. And they call you in an hour and said, oh, they got to get you. They're going to give you overscale, to be one of the heads of a two-headed giant. Yeah, okay. So what we do is what do? We take the money and run because we just want to work, And I don't think it went somewhere in between what I thought it was and what I thought it might not have been. And then sure enough, I got the call saying that I was going to get it. And I don't think I had a great audition in front of David. But you know what? And David brought up a good point. We've done a lot of bantering, kidding back and forth, because Wahlberg is the one that says he fought for me. Yeah, we'll see if he puts me in his next film. But that's exactly the way I talk to him too, because the act doesn't change.
No, you two, because you're from the Bronx and he's from Dorchester, and you guys both speak, ghettoese. So you just
white ghetto.
They're always smacking each other down.
Yeah, and so it
constantly. It's
it
really
happened.
funny.
Well, you can't with Mark. Mark comes from a neighborhood. I grew up in the South Bronx. I was a fireman in New York City for 10 years while I was started to pursue the acting career. And thanks. And the guys where I come from, they don't. The way they tell you that they like you is they punch you. And like I needed to be punched by Mark. In this, and it got to be this great gameplay and this affair. But the affair really started with David.
But I think what was great about that, Jack, if I may interject, was that it really played it played on the screen, as family.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? It made them so comfortable with each other. It was so real. because Mickey and his father are very close.
Right.
And Mickey's father did go to the mat for him. You know, Mickey's father did take some pots and pans for him, you know, and stood up to the, you know, he stood up to the existing order, which is a very heroic thing to do in any situation. You know, there's an existing order that it takes courage to stand up to, and George dared to do that, and Jack and Mark had this kinship. And even though Jack had, what I look for in an audition is I want people to try things different ways, which had also happened with Christian Bale on Three Kings, which is another story. You know, he had auditioned for Three Kings, and some people, he, by his own admission, is a terrible auditioner. And some people just, you know, they do things one way and you can't get them to do them another way. And to me, that I don't, as a director, I want people to do things different ways. That's what I look for. Come in, be loose, be willing to try anything. Come in with 3 different ways to do it. You know, high, medium, low, you know, hot, cold, lukewarm. And be willing to try anything. You know, don't be like, if you get thrown something, don't be like, well, I have no clue how to do that. And even if you have no clue how to do that, say, let me think about that for a second. You know what I'm saying? Or do you have any suggestions for me? Okay, I'm gonna, and then even if you just show your raw desire to do it, that means everything. You know, but Jack was nervous and he only did it one way. But Mark did save him because Mark said, look, he said he's real. He did. Mark said, Jack is real. You have to cast Jack. All right, and I said, God bless, thank God, because Jack was perfect. You know, Jack was like having, you know, Mariano Rivera in your bullpen, you know, and we are both big Yankees fans, and that leads to a good, because I'm from New York, and my dad played on their minor league team as a poor kid in New York, and so I can say, even though I don't like how much money they spend, and I don't like certain things they do, and I get how people hate them, I also, you know, they're in my blood. But Mariano Rivera in your bullpen, you have look how many actors we had. We have the 7 sisters, we have Melissa, we have Christian, we have Amy, we have Mark, you know, and we have Dad, and it's like, you know, as a director, it's so wonderful when you know, like, he's going to be real every take. You know, I don't have to worry about Jack so much. You know, I might just make a slight adjustment, but Jack is like, thank God. You know, Jack's going to give an air of authenticity and looseness to the scene, because that's what we were. This whole film should feel like a shirt you've worn many times. We want it to feel like I like to make it feel thrown away. That it feels like you happen to stumble into a scene that you happen to catch on a documentary almost. You know, that you're being a voyeur into these people's lives. I want them to forget the camera's rolling. You know what I'm saying? So that it feels that way.
You know, it's an odd thing because once I'm blessed to work on something, I do forget the camera's there. I know the technical stuff, where not to stand somebody's light and don't dare get in mine. But also, too, you know, it's the audition process it sucks sometimes because you don't know what they want. And if you try to figure out what it is they're looking for, to make it nuts, because these nitwits, not you, most of them, they have no idea what they're doing. They got their Armani ties tied so tight around their fucking neck that they have no blood circulation go to their head. I know that'll be cut. Most of them. That's the truth.
Wait a second. Did you know this is live?
Hi, how are you? Hi, Mom, how are you? So here's the deal.
It won't be cut.
So here's the deal. And, you know, I think the reason why I got that response there is that because...
Is this ever going to be shown again, or that's it? It's
I don't
live?
know. Who cares? You know, this is live into the moment. To be real, try it a different way. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? So that's what you get. You know. So they're all worried about what that other guy in the cubicle is going to say about who they think they should do, or whatever, and who's taking who to lunch. It's a bunch of bullshit. You know. And there's sometimes but the truth of the matter is, once you start to. Once you start,
that's what I'm worried about. I'm not worried about who's taking over lunch.
Not you. No, not you. I'm talking about the above the line. Those guys that, they don't know who you are until 2 months ago, you know. But if you go into, you go into the room, you don't know what you make a choice, you know. You make a choice and you go with that. And the truth is, I need to be directed sometimes with that. It would say, try this a little bit. I don't remember what the conversation was. Try to do it a little bit looser. Try it a different way. Try it more boisterous. I need to have that feedback. Because I go in and, you know, we're under the gun, whether it's one or 2 lines or whether it's a full scene. And when I first went met David up there, I fell in love with this guy because all of a sudden he knows the movie he's going to make, you know, and it showed. And he says to me, "Here, come here, look at these," and looking at these old. I'm the youngest of 8 kids too. Looking at these old family albums, and this is Ho, and this is Beaver, and this is this, and I'm looking around. I'm saying,
Beaver being the name of one of the sisters.
Yeah, am I supposed to remember what I'm supposed to do for you now? You know. And I felt comfortable, but then all of a sudden, come the time, it's just the audition process is a crazy thing. And sometimes what you got to try to do is go in and do the best you can, have some fun, and try to forget about it. The worst is then when they call you back. I got to think about it a little bit more. But what happened in this film for me is I've never worked. Was certainly with the actors of the caliber and the notoriety that these folks have had. So I'm like the fifth guy. I'm like that guy that's getting this shot after 30 years, right? And that's okay. Somebody's got to make the pretty boys look good, And I hope this is live. But also, and I know that. I know what that deal is. But when you come on the set the first day, and David is laughing, kidding around, playing music in between, hollering at you from the other side of the ring, try this, try that, and some people it rattles and some people it doesn't. I just fed off of that, and fed off the way he treated everybody and how his sense of humor and the way he. That's where the love affair really started. Once I got the job, because I knew of him, but I didn't know what he had done. So the audition process is something that I don't remember exactly what happened there, but I do remember that Mark Wahlberg doing the jabbing before we do stuff right off the bat. And when I first got out of the,
it means by that is Mark punching him.
Yeah, just giving you a shot, And if you notice in the scene just when we're leaving, I opened up the eye and he says, "Alice, is your husband here?" And we're walking. He does the silverback, the gorilla line right at the end.
Was an improv.
As I'm as I'm walking away, he tripped me. He throws his foot out and tripped me. I got to tell you, I've been on about 15 Q&As. Every time they announce us go in, I look around for him, and he's in the back of the theater. And before you know, I go to walk up, he's tripping me again. And that's kind of the way he became. And there's a great story about, because I didn't realize that your dad played. My dad was a catcher in the Giant organization back in the 30s. So the hookup is there. We were both from the Bronx. Mark is from up in Boston, and the last day we were shooting, we were just wearing a T-shirt. We were shooting, and before we changed, we rehearsed, and it's a blue T-shirt, beat up blue T-shirt, and had a Yankee emblem in the front. And I know enough to going up to Boston. You go up if you go to Boston Fenway. No, if you go to Fenway Park and you have a Yankee hat on, you just root for the Yankees. You don't start screaming about the Boston Red Sox fan. If you do, you deserve what you're gonna get. So Mark come up, and the first time he ever did anything, he just gave me a jab, and he started twisting the shirt. He said, "Where'd you get this this shirt?" And he's twisting it like this, So I say, "This is the last shot. I'm not letting." So I grab him, I throw him into the booth, and
wait, slow down for a minute.
I got him nailed in the booth.
You skipped some things here.
What?
So this is in the restaurant.
Yeah.
Wait, hold on a minute. This is in the restaurant. You're gonna hold on.
Give him some direction.
Mark came up and did something I'd never seen before. Well, first of all, Mark walked up very close to you.
He said to me, "What are you doing with that shirt on here?"
Yes, and then you said,
"Let's do the scene."
And you said, and you said, all right. And you said, "Am I Mark or you?"
You play Mark.
I want to tell you what you said.
You play Mark.
But I want to remind you your line. Your line was, you said, "Don't you even?" You were smiling. You said, "Don't you even?"
Because
he
started grabbing.
No. He started going right here.
Oh yeah, right. He started there. Yeah.
And so okay. So I'll come up.
Oh,
And I'll say, "What are you doing? What are you doing wearing this piece of shit? What are you doing wearing this?"
Don't even start. Then we started this thing there. Hold on, let's do it again. Try it a little different this time.
How do you want it? How do you want it?
Just give me a little looser. Give me a little looser.
Like looser, like I'm like.
More playful then.
All right, okay, more playful. All right. What are you doing with this stupid piece of shit?
Don't you even dare.
Is that a different choice?
That was a choice.
Hold on for a minute.
I was just feeling what you were giving me.
But Mark, oh thanks.
Yeah.
So Mark did, I've never seen this done before. In his bare hands, he took the shirt right here. And he ripped it off of his body. If you try it, it ain't easy to do.
No.
I can't do it.
Yeah.
He went,
ripped it off, and I had a little flash dance, nipple exposed.
No, it's all done. I have pictures that I will post.
So
if you
and
guys
I-
have a site, I'll
yes,
give them to you.
and I
have
will
pictures.
tell you.
And then he pushed Mark down in the booth, and Mark doesn't let anybody push him down ever. But
He
he
wasn't
was
stopping me.
laughing so hard,
Yeah.
and Jack was face was so red and so mad.
I was leaning into him, and what happened? This is show you what Mark is like. He's got me down there, and he's grabbed me, and he says, "Come on, let's get up." I says, "You know, the only reason that I asked you not to do that is because the T-shirt the last T-shirt my father gave me before he died."
Is that true? Is that true?
You
So I
didn't,
thought
you
I thought
didn't
were
watch the
making
whole
that-
scene,
I
did
thought
you?
you were making that up.
Wait a minute.
No, I didn't know if it was
Let me
true.
finish.
I
Let
didn't
me
know if
finish.
it was true.
Let me finish.
I thought you were bullshitting.
That was one take, if I could. So he's got me, and he grabbed. And he says, "The only reason I told you that is because this is the T-shirt that my father gave me before he died." And Mark's hands were like this, and he went like this. Oh my God! And as soon as he let go, he said, "You're an asshole. You did." That's
You got him. You got him.
And then what I did is the girls in wardrobe took the shirt, found an identical colored shirt, cut the logo out, and I showed up with it the next night.
And you said,
That's the
you said, the World Series is an annual event that's
No, they
held
said
in
they
the
usually
Bronx.
it's called the World Series, but they usually play it in the Bronx. That's how it happened.
You know, I am reluctant to even try to top that.
Wow.
So I want to thank you both so much for being here
You're very
tonight. Thank you guys for being
Thank
such
you.
a great audience. Thank you at home.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.